Hello and welcome to yet another Scuffed Hammer video. Today we're going to be painting salamanders. I said today we are going to be painting salamanders. There we go, that's much better. Today I'll be painting what most people consider to be the bread and butter for salamanders, Infernus Marines. These guys are the antithesis of salamanders, nothing but flamers, which is kind of salamander's whole deal. Now, let's get started on these Infernus Marines with just a little bit of kit bash to elevate your basic ultramarine out of the box looking Marines into something that you can call your faction. About 10 months ago I came across this really great video that had some random guy on YouTube I'd never seen before used lychee skin for dragon skin. Now this was the first time I'd seen anything other than green stuff be used for dragon skin, and my immediate thought was, that's great, I want to do that. But lychees weren't in season, so I had to wait. And wait. And wait. But eventually they came back, and now I can use them for dragon skin. Now originally, to keep these guys safe while I was taking a break from painting, I decided I'll put a little bit of coloured stickers on the bottom of the model, and then I'll put it on the table and put them on this little protective cover. But it turns out cats can sometimes be assholes. So I came back the next day and found that my cat had slept on it and squished it. So they ended up living in my cupboard instead. Now, because I bought these models secondhand, they do have a little bit of unevenness to them, so I'm just going to clean this up and then we can jump straight into painting. I'll use an airbrush again, but as always, you can use whatever you have. As always, we'll be starting the painting process with a primer. I'm not going to lie, I had to say that 5 or 6 times. Apparently my brain just didn't like the letter P today. Now the reason that we're base coating these before gluing them onto the models is because after the base coat we're going to spray the dragon skin with a white. Now, as you might have guessed from the thumbnail, we're going to be painting our dragon skin like that sweet, sweet, classic Salamander's painting scheme from the Badab War. And for anybody who's been in the hobby for even a short amount of time, knows that painting yellow can be a massive pain. So today, we're using this sweet little trick I picked up from a couple of YouTube channels, but the main one being our good friends Flashing Badger. And that sweet trick is putting some pink on it. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive. I'm painting yellow, but you're telling me to put pink on it? But trust me, once we get to the yellow stage, it'll all make sense. Now, onto the green I talked about earlier. Yes, this can be done with a brush, and in fact most of my first models were done with a brush. I just do this because it saves a lot of time. And time for the wonderful, super secret special sauce. That's right, we're using a contrast paint. Now I haven't done this with something that's supposed to be a little bit more organic before, so I'm going to test both of the contrast paints I have, and then pick which one I like most. And it turns out for that more organic feel, I really preferred the lighter touch. And then, as a little bit of added detail, I'm adding a little bit of Reichland flesh shade to the back of the cape, because you're actually going to be able to see that part. Any black paint works here really, but I thought I'd continue the trend and use contrast paints. Add those little squiggly wiggly lines, and then voila! You have dragon skin that looks like that original colour palette from the Badab War. And while we have that contrast paint, I'll just go ahead and fill in all the little gaps in the armour so the black carapace is actually black. And of course, we are painting salamanders, so the one head that isn't covered by a helmet needs to be this nice, lovely charcoal black. Once you've done that, it's time to move on and start doing some of the more little details. Now, I get it, some people really love to do really complicated 5 colours per little detail, but to be honest, I'm not a massive fan. When I'm painting a lot of models, and in this case I'm painting 10, I like to keep it as simple as possible. And that usually means 1 colour per piece. Sometimes I'll add a wash to add a little bit of definition or detail, but generally 1 colour. Now while this does come out as simple and a little bit less refined as some people would say, I would say to them that for most people, you're just trying to get your models painted so you can enjoy how they look on the tabletop. And if you're trying to churn through a massive amount of models, complicating every single detail is not how you're going to do that. Keep it simple, keep it from 1 to 2 colours at max per part. And don't get me wrong, I think having super complicated models and super complicated paint schemes has its part. It's just not for me. Sometimes I'll do it for some of my more complicated models like a captain or a chaplain, but for my basic bog standard infantry, keep it simple. Anyway, that was a large amount of waffling for what basically boils down to do what you love and do what gets you to put paint on your model. As a complete opposite to what I was just talking about, I actually used to do all of my guns straight silver. I was like, no, I'm not going to waste my time, I'm just going to do them all silver, it'll look great. But as I went along, I found that breaking up that colour sometimes does work. So adding a little bit of colour here and there is fantastic. Now, I'm not going to lie, I picked orange because I thought it would look cool, but I really regret my choice and I wish I'd picked red. But you live and you learn, next time I'll paint them red. For now, this squad will just have orange, and if I feel like it in the future I'll change it. I picked Gehenna's gold. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I got that wrong, by the way, because it complemented the green. A couple of other golds that I have just didn't quite match, so I bought a new one and this one works perfectly. And I haven't looked back since. Now for the secret ingredient that makes salamanders my salamanders. A little bit of Mantis Warrior contrast and that stuff just pops. It looks beautiful. And now, I get it, some people prefer a more traditional green for their salamanders. Heck, some people like to have a lot more gold on their salamanders. But remember, this is a hobby. This hobby is for everybody to do their own way. If you think your space wolf with that wolf helmet looks dumb, put a normal helmet on it. No one's gonna care. And quite frankly, if they do care, tell them to shut up. It's your models, you do it your way. And if they say, hey, you don't have to speak like that, that's a little bit rude, don't you think? Then you should say, well, I think it's a little bit rude that you're telling me how to paint my models. And if that still isn't good enough for them, tell them that Hammer from Scuffed Hammer told them to pipe down. Anyway, I think 2 rants is enough for one video. On to painting the bases. As always, you can use anything to do your bases. I, however, use paints that I stole from my mother. One day, I was visiting and I said, hey Mum, do you have anything I could use for my bases for my little Warhammer models that you know nothing about? And she said, oh, maybe, what are you looking for? So I told her what I was looking for, and she goes, oh, I might want these back one day, but you can use them until then. Then, just to get that lava effect, I put a bit of Mordant Earth on, make sure to lay it on thick so it'll crack up nicely. Ah yes, you can't forget the heat stress, usually my favourite parts of the models. Always use Seraphim Sepia, Drukhari Violet, and Drakenhof Nightshade. Then, paint your base rooms with any paint, whatever colour you like to use. Doesn't have to be hobby paint because that can be expensive. Now for the final step, and the reason that everybody's here and this video is being made anyway, the dragon skin. This part was a little bit fiddly, and if you're not careful, the super glue will leave this weird, icky, white mark all over your model. So make sure you apply very, very scarcely, and always remember that a tiny little bit of super glue does a lot more than you think it will. This turned out so much better than even I imagined it would. So I'm really glad that I ended up seeing that video on YouTube 10 months ago, and I'll drop a link to the original video in the description so you can watch it for yourself and the proper creator can get proper credit. Now that all those bits are stuck on, it's time for the final reveal. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. These models were a joy to paint, and they were such a simple and easy way to bring a little bit of flavour to my faction that GW is too scared to do themselves. I've already had people pick them out from my entire army and go, "Wow, those look so cool, how did you do that?" Hopefully you can walk away from this video realising that whatever your faction is, whether it be Blood Angels or Space Wolves or Iron Hands or White Scars, you can do something to add just little bits of flavour here and there to make your model stand out. Over to you, Scuffed, and see you all next time.